Greetings, booktubers, and welcome back to Grammaticus Books. Welcome back to a Sunday Comics edition of Grammaticus Books. So today we're going to be doing what I hope is going to become a regular feature here on Grammaticus Books, which is hidden comic book gems. And I did the first one of these a while back, probably over a month ago, and I did it on my Marvel Comics, The Micronauts. And if you haven't seen that one, I'll put a link to it down below so you can go check it out. But today we're doing a different one. Today we're going well off the beaten path, and we're doing the hidden comic book gem, Last of the Viking Heroes by Michael Thibodeaux. So Michael Thibodeaux, just a little bit of backstory. Michael Thibodeaux is working at Pacific Comics, and he is quote unquote Jack Kirby's right-hand man, helping Jack Kirby with Captain Victory at Pacific Comics in the late 1980s. So if you don't remember Captain Victory, here's issue number 1 of Captain Victory with a nice Jack Kirby cover and a Jack Kirby back cover on it. This is a pretty decent comic. It's towards the end of Jack Kirby's career. And then here's Captain Victory number 2 with some very typical Jack Kirby looking work on it, which is of course excellent because it's Jack Kirby. And then issue number 3 of Captain Victory at Pacific Comics. And Michael Thibodeaux is helping Jack Kirby with the production of that and is quote-unquote his right-hand man. But then also in Captain Victory, Michael Thibodeaux, as a backstory, is putting in episodes of Viking Heroes. He's doing Viking Heroes as a support. But then he takes Viking Heroes, he takes it to Genesis West in 1987, and at Genesis West, he does a full production of his comic book, Last of the Viking Heroes, and it does a 12-issue run. And he apparently built up a lot of goodwill over at Pacific Comics because he gets a lot of very well-known comic book artists that come in and do guest covers for him for his series. So he must have been a really well-liked guy over at Pacific Comics. And Jack Kirby must have liked him because Jack Kirby does the cover to issue 1 right there. So it's Jack Kirby on issue number 1. You get Michael Thibodeaux coming back on issue number 2. And then issue number 3 is a John Byrne cover. So John Byrne steps in and does cover number 3. Howard Chaykin comes in and does his typical pointillism style on cover number 4. And then you get the infamous or famous, however you want to look at it, cover number 5, which is, again, this is by Michael Thibodeaux. But that cover made a stir. This is 1987, and this was pushing the bounds of what you could get away with nudity in 1987 in the comic books industry. And this comic book is the hardest of this series to collect, and it only went to 12 issues. And Michael Thibodeaux is back on issue number 6. And then you get one of my favorite covers on issue number 7 by Arthur Adams. And I really like that one. And this is a really good issue. This whole issue is a giant wizard fight between this archmage here and a villain by the name of Asai. And then issue number 8, you have a Michael Thibodeaux cover on the front. And then on the back, you have a second cover by Jack Kirby. And then Jack Kirby actually does an interior panel inside of here. You've got Michael Thibodeaux doing all the work. And then all of a sudden, you got a Jack Kirby panel on the inside. And you got this back cover Jack Kirby cover on the back of the issue here for a dual cover, which is really cool. And then Michael Thibodeaux does the last 3 issues, actually the last 4. Number 9, number 10, and then number 12. I am missing issue 11. Issue 11 had, as far as I can tell, issue 11 had a very limited print run, and it's hard to get a hold of. And when you do see it come up, it tends to have a very high price tag on it, like by high price tag of like $25. Which none of these comic books are very expensive to collect because they're not very well known, which is what makes it a hidden comic book gem. And it's a very fun series. The reason I call it a gem is because it's just a very fun story that Michael Thibodeaux did to just do a good adventure story. And it's about 4 Viking heroes, the last of the Viking heroes, living in the mythical kingdom of Thorvald in the 1100s. And they're caught between 2 worlds. The Vikings are trying to move on to a more civilized nation, and these young Vikings are trying to relive the old glory days. And so particularly Prince Sven, who's one of the main characters, is sort of caught between these with his father on the throne, trying to civilize the realm, and he and his friends trying to relive the heroes of the old times. And that's the theme that kind of runs through these. But I'll let you take a look on the inside of this and show you why I like this comic book so much. Here's Tomgar, one of the other four companions. He's sort of a Conan stand-in. He's half Native American, and he's half Viking, and he's like the indestructible fighting machine. But just look at the colors in this comic book. The colors are fantastic. Every page, just the colors are so bright, the yellows, the blues, and the reds. It just jumps off the page, and you don't see that today. And a lot of that is because it's cost prohibitive for companies to make colors like this these days. But that's one of the reasons why I love this comic book so much. And it's just a fun comic. There's no pretense at any type of social message or any larger message running behind it, or a theme or allegory. It's just a straight up fun adventure series. And then here you get another companion. This is Eric, who is sort of a Fandral the Dashing stand-in from the Thor comics. And he's the ladies' man and the swordsman. And you have the scantily clad lady up here. And that's one of the themes that runs through these comic books as well. So the women in these comic books are very scantily clad throughout the whole thing. It's just a theme that he does. I don't know why. Oh, actually, I do know why. But that's how he draws all of his women. And then you've got Prince Sven talking to his father, trying to defend his friends for starting a bar fight with the city guards, which is how this comic book starts. And then the last of the four companions is John the Magician. Actually, he's a magician's apprentice. He's apprenticed to Zahn, the master magician. And this is John, who I think is a bit of a self-insert from Michael Thibodeaux. And he has no magician skills at all. He can't work any magic at all. And that's sort of his plot foil through these comic books. And the comic books are good. The first 4 issues are essentially episodic. They stand alone by themselves until you get to issue number 5, and then you start having a theme, an overarching theme storyline run from 5 through to the end of 12. And that theme is that the Norse mythological dragon Nidhogger, who chews at the roots of the world tree Yggdrasil, is trying to take over the soul, eat the soul of Prince Sven, and then put his own personage inside of Prince Sven so he can take over the mythical kingdom of Thorvald, ruled by Prince Sven's father, the Viking king. And you have the agents of the dragon, who is just almost this indestructible force, this massive, huge dragon that lives at the roots of the world, who keeps sending his agents in, and these agents are fighting repeatedly with Prince Sven and his 3 companions, the last of the Viking heroes. And let me just read you the opening introduction to sort of set the tone here for the rest of the series. I think it's good to hear, good to read. So this is the opening paragraph introducing the comic book to the reader. Near the end of the 12th century, the Vikings as we knew them ceased to exist. After 200 years of barbaric wars, this new breed of Viking now settled disputes with words instead of the sword. They had become civilized. Violence became frowned upon, and bold displays of it were outlawed! Decrees of all kinds were established to govern people's actions. Struggling to adapt in this new era were those valiant men of yesteryear who had always returned as the triumphant conquerors. These men are known as the last of the Viking heroes. And every issue starts with a paragraph that leads into that last phrase there, last of the Viking heroes. Like I said, these are episodic up to about issue 5, and then you get this theme about the agents of Nidhogger trying to take over the kingdom. And one of those agents is the evil magician Asai, who is right here battling with John, the apprentice's master magician, in the master magician's wizard's tower. And this is really good stuff. This entire comic book is essentially one giant wizard's duel. And again, look at the colors. Just love the colors. And his style is a little cartoonish, but I think it plays well with the theme of the books. It plays into it really well, and especially with the colors that he's using here, it makes everything crisp. And it's a bit of a mix, in my opinion, of early Barry Windsor Smith. There you get a real kind of Barry Windsor Smith vibe to it. And Barry Windsor Smith and Dave Trampier of D&D fame. I think it's a bit of a mix of their two styles. But it just is beautiful stuff. And of course, this fight just goes through this entire comic book between these two wizards. And it's wonderful. I really love it. Here you guys can see it. And just those colors continue through the entire series. You get all these vibrant colors just jumping off of the page. More battling. And then towards the end of it, the world dragon, the dragon eating at the roots of the world tree, Nidhogger, makes his appearance, and he sucks in the soul of the wizard Asai, who failed to defend himself from his own master. And then you get the Fenris wolf, who gets reanimated basically as a giant flying monkey, and then comes after the four as Fenris the wolf, aka the flying monkey. And that is issue 8, where you get that great wraparound cover, the double cover, where it's Michael Thibodeaux on the front cover, and then the back cover by Jack Kirby. And it's Tomgar, aka Conan, having a Rogues in the House type storyline, fighting against the Fenris wolf, who's actually a flying monkey. And there's you starting it off there with some of the other agents trying to instigate some violence, and here you get the real Rogues in the House sort of feel to it. And this is the issue that has the Jack Kirby panel insert. More Rogues in the House goodness. And the panel insert is on page 12. So let me find that for you guys. Here you go. So here's page 12. And you got Michael Thibodeaux doing the artwork, and then right here, in this panel right there, that's actually a Jack Kirby panel, and he's signed it down on the bottom. And a little bit about the artwork of Mike Thibodeaux. Mike Thibodeaux does everything in these comics. Mike Thibodeaux, he writes the comic, he pencils the comic, he inks the comics, he letters the comics, and he colors these comics. He colors them with a little bit of help every now and then, but it's essentially a one-man show, which is super impressive, and another reason why I think it's a gem of hidden comic books. But this is just a fantastic issue. I love this one a lot. It's another, just a big battle. At the end of it, of course, Tomgar is successful. He impales the flying monkey, Fenris wolf, which then reverts back to the Fenris wolf here in issue number 8. And then you move on, you've got issues number 9, where Nidhogger comes up. You're building towards a climax in issue 12, and they start having to fight the Nidhogger dragon himself in issue 9. Issue 10 is another one of his agents, the Nidhogger's agents. This is Marek, who's an evil swordsman. Reminds me a lot, the visuals on Marek, of Zucala by Barry Windsor Smith in Conan issue number 5. And I'll put up a Zucala there so you can compare it. And this has issue number 12 here has a very Barry Windsor Smith feel to it as well. And thankfully, I don't know if they planned it only for a 12-issue series. There's very little information you can find on this on the internet, but they wrapped this up in the 12 issues. And the story is brought to a conclusion. There are almost no ads in these comics. This is just solid comics all the way through. And you have the final showdown with Nidhogger, which doesn't end well for Nidhogger. Another thing in here, issue number 8, I want to go back to that one. One of the other things that Michael Thibodeaux does throughout these comic books is he will insert pinup drawings in the comics. And this issue number 8 has about 5 of these pinup drawings in it. Why he's felt the need to put pinup drawings in his comics, I don't know. They're gorgeously done. Here's some more pinups here in issue number 8. And it's just another nice little touch that, in my opinion, makes it a little hidden comic book gem. And you've got a pinup on the inside cover, and I think there's another pinup in this issue as well. This is like issue number 8, the pinup issue. So that's one of the things that I wanted to point out in there. Here's a sample of Dave Trampier's early Wormy art. So you can take that and take a look at that for a comparison. And I think that Michael Thibodeaux's art here is a mix of Barry Windsor Smith, Dave Trampier, and his own art style, of course. That's kind of the vibe that I get off of it. And you get Betty Boop. That's the other thing, is his women in here are definitely, pardon me while I talk down at the floor. That's not very good. But his women in here are either the blonde archetype Viking women, or they are Betty Boop lookalikes. And he has multiple women that all have this same look to it, where they've got the Betty Boop look going. I guess Michael Thibodeaux, he had a thing for Betty Boop, I don't know. But he definitely fills his comics with Betty Boop style women. Those and the blondes. So that's it for Last of the Viking Heroes. What was the relevance? What was the influence that this comic book had on the comic book industry? Pretty much nil, nothing, zippo. It was a one-shot, 12 issues. They're really well done. They're a ton of fun. It's just a big adventure story from start to finish. The writing goes up and down. Some of the writing is really good. Some of it gets a little weak, particularly in like issues number 3, 4, and 5. But then it gets stronger and stronger, and there's a lot of humor to it. And it's just a ton of fun to read. And did I mention the colors? The colors are just fantastic. They jump off the page. The art's great. Michael Thibodeaux's action sequences in here are great. I love the wizard duel in issue 7. Then the Rogues in the House type issue in number 8 with the Fenris wolf that's been turned into the flying monkey. It's just a lot of fun. If you have a chance to check these out, I would highly recommend it. You can get almost all these comics fairly cheap, except for that issue number 5. That one's going to be a bit pricier, up around $25. And issue 11 must have had a very low print run, because it is hard to get a hold of as well, and can be a little pricey too, which is why I haven't picked it up yet. I do plan to get it to fill out my run and make all 12 of these together, but at this point I don't have it. And it's worth noting that in addition to that Michael Thibodeaux did summer specials, and he did 3 summer specials where he teams up the Last of the Viking Heroes with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And this is done with Eastman and Laird, but all the interior artwork and the story is actually Michael Thibodeaux. So I've got 2 and 3 of the summer specials that are the 2 that had the the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in it. And then there was a signed limited print run edition that collected all 3. And the first of including the first of the summer editions. And the first summer edition did not have the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in it, but it did have a cover by Frank Frazetta, which is another example of a really well-known person stepping in and doing a guest cover, which is another reason why these are comic book gems. John Byrne, Arthur Adams, Jack Kirby, Howard Chaykin, Frank Frazetta, all doing covers for Michael Thibodeaux on this just really fun adventure series. And that's what makes it a hidden comic book gem. But I've rambled on long enough about it. Hope you guys liked this video. If you've got other comic book gems that you think are out there that deserve attention that didn't get it, put it down in the comments section below. And other than that, take care, be safe, and I'll catch you guys in the future.